Everyone, and welcome. Today I have a cool video for you guys. I'm going to be talking about balance changes, and this is going to be pretty much a list that me, myself, and Faust, I don't know why I said me and myself, but me, Faust, and AmberT have been going over. We've been doing this for about, I want to say, 2 to 3 weeks now. We've been kind of making a list, adding on, changing things, looking over what people have said about units and stuff like that. So we compiled a huge list in terms of balance changes, maybe not huge, of Spiner and Maul and some major changes, and to hopefully balance the game a little bit more and kind of leave the game on a good note in terms of balance. And then, you know, maybe the next war game, we can provide a little bit more to the balance conversation, maybe in the next war game if it happens. So to start off, we have a whole bunch of changes in the general section. I'll be posting the full list in the description below, so if you just don't want to listen to me speak about the change or anything like that, you can just get the list in the description. So the list currently. First off, we're trying to fix the sound bugs with some of the weapons. So currently, there's some weapons that have different sound files, stuff like that. They're just playing different sounds, snipers, you know, and we're trying to fix those as a whole. Next is that there's a small, I guess these are just bug changes. I don't really have to go over these. So the first major change that we're doing is we're giving all self-propelled guns to armor decks. I said this in my armored deck review not too long ago, that I think SPGs would be good to be put into armor decks, and this change was discussed fully, and we believe that it's a huge bonus and makes armor decks as a whole more viable and more playable. Next is we're giving all Eric's teams a minimal range, which means that people can't you know, spam Eric's like they do with no min range, and they're the only fist team in the game that's not a grenade launcher squad that has a min range, a minimum range to shoot the Eric's. So we're nerfing it a little bit, but I think it's well deserved. So next off, we're moving to USSR. And the first major change is we're taking the Smirch down to 1 per card. Now the reason behind this is currently that Smirches are spammed too much in team games, and we think that the individual unit itself is very strong, like the attackums, it's very strong, but the amount we see it is way too often, and the numbers is way too much, like way too many numbers. You can get 2 cards at 2 in the card, and the attackums is 1 per card, and you only get 1 per card. Now the change we suggested is, of course, it's going down to 1 per card, and we still think the unit should be strong individually, so we're reverting it to the previous pre-nerf change to having 8 AP. Now we're only going to see 1 of these on the battlefield per USSR/Slavko deck, and I think that the individual unit is still very strong with the current buff, giving it 8 AP, and it's not going to be, we're not going to see it as often in the amount of volume that it has currently. So the next change is the Bertino, again moving it down to 1 per card. These things are heavily spammed in terms of team games, and we don't think that's healthy for the game environment and for balanced and competitive play and casual gameplay. We don't think it's very fun, and we think it's definitely something that's a unique unit and should be 1 per card. So that's what we're doing to it. Now in terms of taking it at a veterancy, we think that's a very cool option that we can do, because people like to take Bertinos at lower veterancy because they like the dispersion, and some people like to take it at higher veterancy because they like the small range. So that could be an option, probably not though. I would like to see something in the future where you could choose your veterancy with some of these single special units. So the next change we're doing is we're taking a look at the OSA AKM. Now the OSA is a strong unit, wheeled AE piece that's radar based, and what we want to do is we want to give it more plane range, or excuse me, more helicopter range. so that it's semi-decent, maybe like 29.75, something like that. So it's decent versus Gila's. It's not so bad with 50% accuracy, so we also want to buff it to 55% accuracy. Nerf the plane range a little bit, so it's going to be better at a kind of a Hilo-more role that's wheeled, and maybe kind of reduce the plane range to something a little bit smaller. And that affects all OSA AKMs, all 65-point variants as well. So the next change is the big one. I think most people are going to be pretty excited about this one, is we're going right down to this puppy, this BTR 90. This is a big issue for most people, and especially in ranked and competitive play. BTR 90s are just too effective and too seen as mostly the USSR face brand transport. So what we're doing is we're reducing it to 2 per card, and we're also, not only are we doing that, is we're reducing the inventory that it takes by 2. So with exclusion of the GRU. So the GRU are still going to come at 4 in the BTR 90, but for units like the Morskaya, and if you take Motoshtoki in them, yeah, you're going to be reduced by 2. So that means you're going to have less of your infantry, and especially in Spetsnaz, if you take Spetsnaz in BTR 90s, you're going to really pay for it in terms of availability. So this way, we reduce the amount of BTR 90s seen on the battlefield. They're still very effective in what they do, but they're totally, they're too much. We see them way too much for what they do. They're really effective, and we like to keep them effective without nerfing them. But this way, we reduce the amount we see them, and we penalize some people for pretty much spamming them as much as possible. So the next change we have is we're going to the BMP2, and this affects all BMP2s. We're buffing the BMP2 accuracy as a whole by 10%. So this means all BMP2s with autocannons have a 25% chance to hit with the main gun accuracy now. We aren't changing the stabilizer currently. We might do something like that in the future, where we think the stabilizer deserves a change as well, but right now we're not. This does affect the BTR, the 1986 version, so it's going to have 35% base accuracy, which we think is very justified for the price you're paying for it. And we're also looking at we're also going to be looking at BMP1s. We want to make the GROM base accuracy 35% as a whole. So this means that the BMP1 base accuracy isn't so bad, and maybe it will hit something once in a while. Kind of a small buff to the BMP1 line. Not too much, not very effective, but it's something we can do to help. Next change we have is we're fixing the MTOB. This is not in USSR, kind of a mistake. I guess I'll go ahead and say it. So we're fixing the MTOB availabilities for Eastern Bloc in terms of mudshits and stuff like that. So it's just in the wrong place on my list. Next thing is we're looking at Gornostroki. Now we feel like for 30 points Gornostroki are good, but they're not really good enough for the 30-point price. So what we're doing is we're buffing it to shock veterancy. Now what this does is it fits kind of in realism terms as well. They're not regular infantry in real life, they're shock infantry, they're based off VDV, and a VDV or shock infantry and Gornostroki are a better version of VDV. They're mountain troops, etc. We think they should be shock and not regular. So this way, we're also, we think that shock is good enough for these guys. We think they have a good weapon. They're as a whole, they're not too great. PKM is kind of bad, but shock shouldn't really change them out. Just help them a little bit in terms of somewhat fighting against infantry. Next change we're looking at is quite a big one, I guess. We're looking at Morskaya 90s. We think as a team Morskayas are kind of underpowered. We think the only reason they're good right now currently is because they come in BTR 90s. And that's why you see them so much, is that they are a 15-man squad that are good, but usually you're paying for the 15 men without the stats, and you're paying for BTR 90. So right now we kind of want to buff them a little bit. We want to make them useful, and in terms of the BTR 90 change, we feel like this is kind of justified, because maybe this will encourage people to use other transports instead of the BTR 90 as well, especially if they're going to take the Morskaya 90. So what we're doing is we're giving them the AK-74SU, or excuse me, the AKS-74U. Now, what the AKS-74U is the It is this gun right here. It is the it's pretty much a assault rifle. Now this could be a nerf and a buff, but we think this makes them somewhat better versus infantry somewhat, and we think that it will be a small buff to help them versus infantry fighting. We wanted to buff the RPG, but we didn't think it'd be very balanced enough, so we went with this option instead. Giving them this, we feel is just a better... Is that even modeled correctly? Yeah, I don't even think that's modeled correctly. I think they didn't even model this gun. That's kind of strange. Oh, okay, well, back on topic. Yeah, so we wanted to buff the RPG, but we didn't think we could actually physically buff it without buffing the other variants on different Eastern Bloc infantry, like Marines. So we went with the AK-74 change instead. So next, we're looking at tanks here. We're looking at the T-72, the T-72A, and the T-64A. So what we're doing is we feel that these tanks aren't very good. At the price, they're very weak. So what we're doing is we're slashing them all by 5 points. So this means T-72 is going to be to 40 points, T-72A is going to be 50 points, and T-64A is going to go to 45 points. We feel that these tanks are good currently, but they're in comparison to the other tanks, they're not that great in terms of just not being effective enough. So I'm not quite sure about this change. I probably need to think about it more, maybe look over a few things, but I think for the most part it's a good change. Next change we have is a big one. So we're looking at the T-72B, right? And we're looking at the T-72B1, and the only difference between the two is the HEGM. Now what we're doing here is we're making the T-72B have 1 more AP, having 19 AP. So that means it's a little bit different, a little bit better than the gun on the B1 version. So it gives you kind of more of a reason to take the B itself. We're looking at the T-64BV as well. We're giving it 5% more accuracy, so 60% accuracy for 10 points HEGM and 1 AP. We think it's definitely worth it, and I think, you know, the change is pretty well deserved. After that, we're looking at the T-72BU. Whoa, there's a change about the BU? Yes. We finally discussed a change, and we could go on about lengths about this change, but we think it's effective and kind of gives it a small buff. And because as a whole, we think the 180 price is not really, you know, worth it compared to like the NATO, maybe the M1A2, the Leopard 2A5. We don't think it's that great in terms of price. So what we're doing is we're giving the BU the reflex. Now the only difference between the Civer and the reflex is just the range. So it's getting a 2800 meter HEGM, no other change. That's it. That's pretty much it. It's a small buff. I don't think it's too much, but this I mean, it's a really long discussion, but as a team we thought it was good enough as a change for a small buff to the unit to justify that 180 price in comparison to the other tanks. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So next we're moving to the helos. We're looking at the Mi-24V. Yeah, we're looking at the Mi-24V first. So the Mi-24V currently at 100 points. We don't think it's very good at the current situation. In comparison to other helos, other AA helos, it loses pretty often. The accuracy on the Igla is low, so if you miss one and you take another one, you're going to get shaken, and then the next one you fire is probably going to get affected by that accuracy. So what we're doing is we're making it 90 points, 10 points less, to make it a little bit cheaper in terms of just an AA helo, and all around just a better, you know, I mean, you're not paying an arm and a leg like you are now. 100 points is quite a lot, and 90 points kind of cuts down that price. So next, now this is a very interesting change, and I think some people will pretty much agree that this is well needed, and hopefully people can, kind of look around the nerf or buff, whatever you see. So we're looking at the Akula. Now currently the Akula is pretty bad. People have been suggesting ripple fire missiles, blah blah blah, and ripple firing 12 rounds is really sucks. I mean, you're gonna run out of ammo with a 0-second reload time and about, very quickly. So we looked at that. We thought about any other options we could give to the K-52, and we came up with one. We suggested the Su-25T get a change to be able to ripple fire and forget missiles. Now currently this isn't realistic, but we believe the Su-25T needed a buff in some way for it to be somewhat used, maybe possibly. So we gave it fire and forget, and we gave it ripple fire missiles, so it can shoot 2 at a time. Now the Akula and the Su-25T uses the same missiles. So what way would we would probably do the same thing, right? You're exactly right. So we're giving the Vickr fire and forget missiles. We are reducing the missile range to 2,800 meters, and here's why. It would be extremely OP for a helicopter to have longer range AA weapons, or excuse me, AA ATGM and be fire and forget. That would be extremely OP. So this way we're reducing the ATGM, reducing the range by 175, so down to 2,800 meters, and we're giving it a 2-second reload time. And we're keeping all the stats the same. So it's gaining fire and forget, we're reducing the range, and we're kind of buffing, or we're nerfing the reload time so it doesn't just go nuts with missiles. Now, we think this is a better change than what it is currently. We're giving that fire and forget so it doesn't have that semi-active wavering in terms of accuracy, and for the price we think it's very good, and it's a good change. Next, we're looking at the MiG-27. So this is the OP super heavy killer, and what we're doing is removing heat from the gun. This way it doesn't do so much base damage versus tanks. It does about 6 to 4 damage to front armor of super heavy tanks, etc. So it does a lot of damage. So we're removing heat from the gun so it doesn't do that damage anymore, and we're also making it 105 points. So 105 points makes it completely better in this situation. And makes it a whole lot more expensive by 10 points, I don't know. And then we're going to the MiG-27M, and we're making it 100, or excuse me, I guess I should say removing heat. We are removing heat from all the MiG guns, which is best as a whole in terms of just MiGs being completely OP and ways to just take out tanks super easy. We're making the MiG-27M 120 points as well. Next change we're looking at is the PD. We're reducing the PD's base veterancy to rookie, and we're also changing the 2 down from elite to veteran, and we're also making it 100 points. And this plane is a little too effective at what it does. Now we're reducing the extra elite bonuses from it, and making it veteran I think is the best way to do that. So I already talked about the Su-25T being able to ripple fire missiles and have fire and forget. Next is the IL-102. Now currently the IL-102 is really underused. If I could find the actual unit, oh there you go. Currently the IL-102 is really underused, and we'd like to buff it in some way, but it's currently on our list. I'm going to talk with FLX sometime and see if we can probably get some loadout. Definitely a price change because it's way too expensive at what it is now. Maybe some new bombs, maybe some cool ideas, cluster, thermobaric, maybe a mix of the two, something like that. So I hope you guys look forward to, if you like the IL-102, having a wonky loadout, probably removing it down to 1 card as well. Next off, we're looking at Red Dragons. Okay, so Red Dragons, the first change is the HQ7. HQ7 is going to 70 points. Right now it's a little too effective at 60, and we think it's one of the best APCs currently at 60 points, if not the best, and making it 70 makes it a little bit more expensive. So next off, after that, we're going to the YW. Yeah, this this thing. We're giving it the same ammo as the North Korean one. That's it. That has a 9-round difference. We're looking next at the ZTQ62G. We're making it 70 points. Right now it's too effective in Moto decks, and especially in ranked. It's really effective at what it does, being stealth, having high AP, good rounds per minute, and also some good front armor. And it also has very good optics. So we're making it 70 points. We think it's, needed. Next change is we're giving the ZTQ62G1, this one, we're buffing this one as a whole. We're giving it 1 round per minute to 7, and we're also giving it 40% accuracy, so plus 5%. So just a small buff. We think the tank maybe could be used now. Maybe a price change later, who knows, we'll see. After that, we're looking, we're kind of bouncing around everywhere, but we're going to look at the Chomaho. We're giving, okay, well, I know a lot of people have been complaining about North Korea tank line being bad, etc., but there's nothing major we can do. We're avoiding these big major changes and rebalances to units that we can't do, we don't have the time to do, and we're not getting paid to do this. So it's certainly not, I mean, we're doing this all on our free time, trying to, make something as balanced as possible, and if we were to rebalance a whole lot of tanks, it would require a lot of time, a time we don't have, and it has to be accepted and reviewed and stuff like that. So it's really just not, and like we're kind of overlooking these big changes because we don't have the time to do them, and neither does Eugene as a company. So we're just buffing the Chomaho 4 to medium optics, and that's about it. So next is the PTZ-89. Right now people use it as a pretty much just the only tank they use because it has high AP, great rounds per minute, and it's just a little too effective at what it does because it one-shots a lot of tanks at 21 AP for 65 points. So we're making it 1 per card, reducing the amount we see because people take 2 cards at 2 at a veteran or hardened, whatever it is, and it's just this way we make this change. So it's not that great. Next off, we're making the MI25 1 per card. So what this does, it reduces helo cheese by a ton. People helo cheese with Hinds all day. This is the only Hind, I believe, that's 60 points in like a D Hind actually, that has that you can buy as a helo, and this is a very popular helo cheese aircraft, or excuse me, not aircraft, well helo. So we're reducing it to 1 per card. Next is the SU-25K. We're nerfing this a little bit because it shouldn't be at this price. It should be at 120 because 110 is way cheap. Next is the SU-27K. We're giving this plus 5 accuracy as a whole to the missiles, not changing the price. Right now this plane is really fucking awful, and we want to make it a little bit better, and this way we think it's the best without making the price different and changing it up. Next off, we're making the Fabel 155 points, just a small buff because it does have 40% ECM and it not 50 like other high tier ECM 8 or seed planes. So after that, we're moving to Eastern Bloc. Not too many changes here. We are removing so-called transports from mechanized. We're also going to be looking at Commandosi, and we're going to be buffing Commandosi, giving them 2 more EP on the RPG to 17. We think that Commandosi currently aren't used whatsoever over LSDR, and we think that maybe with a small RPG buff that they're going to be used a little bit more. 17 kind of at least changes a little bit of the low AP value. We couldn't, there wasn't an option to reroll or add new units. We'd love to add a Commandosi 90, but right now that's not really an option for us, so we can't really do that. We're fixing the BTR 70, BTR 80, and BTR 60 availability, I guess, for Matschützen. There's a lot of Matschützen availability problems, and we hope to clean all those up right now. So, and MTOB, they're all those There's a lot of problems. So we're making the BMP1. Where is it? We're making the BMP1 SP1 10 points as it should be without an ATGM. We're making this 70 points because it shouldn't be at 75, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So on to Han Corps. We are reducing the amount of Jaegers, availability of Jaegers, from 3 to 2. This right now, currently, we think Jaegers are heavily used in mixed, mechanized, and just general decks, general Han Corps as a whole. So we're nerfing them to 2 cards. This way, because they have MG3s, they're way effective for the price, and hopefully people will kind of see the balance in this. Some people will be upset, but if you look at the terms and the stats, they have a pretty decent RPG for 10 points, and they have the MG3, which is the best LMG in the game, for 10 points, and you can get 3 cards of them being at like 16 vetted or something like that. So yeah. Hopefully people see and not complain too much, blah blah blah, because I know there's a lot of Eurocore Han Corps fanboys out there. So yeah. Next is we're looking at Base Legion. Base Legion are 25 points. We don't think they should be 25 points, so we're reducing them to 20. After that, we're looking at Commando Marines. We are buffing Commando Marines to 35 points. Yeah, that's it. We're buffing them. Next is the Martyr 1 line. So the Martyr 1s right now are heavily underused in comparison to the Martyr 2. We think they should be better as a whole, and we're buffing them 10% accuracy across the board. The Martyr 1s are just, again, underused, and I think as a whole they should be better. And there should be some, kind of reasons to take them over Martyr 2. After that, we're nerfing the Martyr 2 to 40 points. For 10 frontal armor, 35 points. The gun, we think it's a very good unit individually, and I guess when you compare it to when you add on the price of a Panzer Grenadier squad, it's still a little underpriced. 6 AP is a hell of a lot, and the range and the accuracy is just way too much. So we're nerfing it a little bit, 5 points, so people aren't going to spam as much as they are currently. After that, we're making the Panzer Mars HS30. This 35 points. It's a 120mm mortar, and it's a little bit undercosted. We're looking at the Cortal again. The Cortal is going at 70 points. Same thing in here. After that, we're going to the Cassiope. Now, this isn't much of a problem at team games, but in 1v1 and 2v2 games, Cassiopes are insane in terms of just being a 40-point death machine. So we're reducing the amount that we see them by 7 unvetted and 5 vetted, because right now they're just way OP. Next, we're looking at the air tab. We're looking at Super Extended, SEM, and Tendard. Super Nintendo. And we're nerfing it to 100 points. Now, for casual players, the Super Extended is pretty good. It's very cheap. 90 points is really cheap. It's pretty much just a MiG. It's a better MiG. It fires from a long range, and it has a high AP value with 30% ECM. We think for 90 points, it's way undercosted, so we're putting it at 100 points. So it's a 10-point more difference. I think the change is well deserved. It's really a little too effective at its current price for being in it just an ATGM. It deals so much damage to any tank. It one-shots a lot of them, and it shoots at a very far range. So when the missile lands, it is semi-active, but when the missile lands, usually the plane is still at a very good distance from where the tank was originally shot. So next off, we're moving to Scandinavia. I guess I should do there. So we are removing links, sabsling, whatever you call them, from everything, from support, mechanized, armored. It's in way too many spots, and we're putting it back like other helo commands. So after that, we are also removing RBS trucks from mechanized, which they shouldn't be in. After that, we're going to the automatic. So right now, the automatic currently is pretty much just a Tunguska that can kill tanks, I guess. It is radar based though, so I guess comparing it to the Tunguska is not really well. But we think the automatic is a little bit OP. The price change is okay, but what we're doing is we're reducing the availability. Currently it has 5 per card. Now we're reducing it to 4 per card to keep in line with other higher tier AA pieces. After that, we're looking at the NM135. It's an autocannon transport, and pretty much any autocannon transport in the game should be valued at 15 points. 10 points is just way too cheap for an autocannon, no matter the stats. After that, we're looking at Danish Special Forces. Now currently Danish Special Forces are only offered in Jupiters and Lynxes. What we're doing to buff them is we are giving them access to either the Moskris or the M113 for transport options. We're also doing the same with the Jaegers, giving them options to come in M113s or Moskrises as well. Next is we are fixing the Panzerbill rate of fire. Now currently, if you're unaware, the Panzerbill currently is broken, super broken. The rate of fire is not 21 rounds per minute, I'll say that. I think it's around 40. It's double what it should be, and it's just completely really OP. So we're removing the rate of fire. Maybe more of a nerf later, but we're just making it down to 21. Next is the IKV 105. This is a vehicle. Now 16 AP for 35 points, and mechanized X, this thing is really sweet, and we're reducing that to about 14 AP, so minus 2 AP. Next is the SK60B. We're making this thing 70 points. The reason being, it's way too good at killing tanks and other vehicles. It's 60 points, and it's such a weird looking plane. Look at that. It's so strange. Yeah, but it's just way too effective anyway. We're also looking at the Puff. We're making the Puff 80 points, and we're reducing the amount of the availability by 1, so it's going to go down to 2 per card. Buff right now, for all the things you get, is just 70 points is a steal, and 80 points is just way too much. Or excuse me, 70 points is just way too effective. Next off, we're moving to Commonwealth. Commonwealth as a whole, general-wise, gets plus 10 availability, which is a pretty significant buff. Next off, we're moving to SASR. Now, we think SASR as a whole are pretty weak. Excuse me. I'm doing this at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And we want to buff them to 15 men to make them a little bit better, and maybe some people will take them over Royal Marines and stuff like that, or maybe just take them as a whole. We're doubling the ammo on the warriors. We think that the warriors are good APC line, but they're not that great because they have a low ammo count, so we're giving them 240 rounds. Next off, we're going to Recon tab. We're looking at NZSAS. We're making them 30 points and giving them the Carl Gustav M3. We want them to be a viable option in terms of recon infantry. Right now they don't really have a viable way to kill tanks, and in Commonwealth people can just take NZSAS now for somewhat of a good... That's so weird. Why does it do that? Oh, because it actually comes in that. Wow, I'm an idiot. But yeah. Next thing we're moving is the Challenger 1 Mark III. We're giving the Mark III 21 front armor. This way it's a little bit better and as a whole tank, because right now it's not very good, and we just think it should be better, right? We want it to see a little bit more action and just a small buff, give it some more front armor, and it's going to be just a little bit better than what it is now. We're nerfing the Mexus to 80 points. Right now 70 points is really good. 75 points, excuse me. And we think at 70 points it's where the tank should be. Next, we're buffing the Chimera. We're giving it 1 more round per minute because it's just a really awful unit. After that, we're nerfing the availability of the Vickers Mark 11. We think the Vickers is good, but it is a unique unit, and it is prototype, so it should have 1 per card. We're going to skip the Lynx 3 talk. We're buffing the Kahu to make it 115 points. We're also oh man, jeez, I keep yawning. We're nerfing the GR7 and all laser-guided bomb planes as a whole. Right now they're a little too effective at what they do, and they're 100% accuracy, so we're making 120 points. Now, some of these changes, most of these changes have already been discussed in length on Captain's video. I will say that. I probably should have said that at the beginning of the video. But we discussed this pretty fully. Laser-guided planes being way too effective. So, yeah. We're also making the GR1, this one, 55% accuracy on the ATGM, 15% as a whole, and making 100 points. On to Blue Dragons. Not too many changes here. We think Blue Dragons as a whole is a strong faction. It's just a little bit underplayed. We're going to the F1 and we're nerfing it because it is a general plane and you get 4 of them, I believe. And we're making it 100 points and we're reducing it by 1, so you get 3 or 2. I think it's 3. Yeah, I think it's 3, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, we're just nerfing it by 1. I don't remember. I wish I knew. It's just a little late. After that, we're looking at the USA, United States of America. We're nerfing this to 35 points. Yeah, where it should be. At 30 points, that's not where it should be for a wheeled mortar carrier. We're nerfing the Bradley. The Bradley at 75 points is way OP. It's going back to 90, where it should have been a long time ago. And yeah. We're making the M8 AGS either 55 or 60 points. Probably 60. At 13 rounds per, it's got a great gun. It's pretty much just a PTZ, but with a couple SAP, and it's a great tank. It's small as well. So we're making it 60 points. Next change, we're looking at the DAP. We're making it 70 points. We think the DAP as a whole, counting the not counting the minigun weaponry and just the stats of the unit, with the stingers is way underpriced, and if we add the guns, 70 points is justified. Next and final major change is we're nerfing the longbow. We're giving it one. We're not ripple firing anymore. We're firing one missile at a time, and we're reducing the reload time to 2 seconds. We think that the longbow right now is just too strong of a unit. It's an individually a strong unit, but you can still get 2 of them in the card, so it's not a one card wonder. But this way, we still think it's still very powerful, and what it does, and it's kind of a buff and a nerf, I guess. You can see it. The buff is it doesn't waste the second missile 9 times out of 10. The nerf is it's not very potent versus those tanks that people want to, drive up and or fly up and shoot and then run away. You can't really do that too much anymore. And we're just pretty much putting it in line with all the other attack kilos to where it should be. After that, we're going to the naval tab. No way. No way. You're going to the naval tab? What for? No, you're going to the Tomcat. Right, we're putting the Tomcat in the United States Air tab. Currently, I don't think there's a reason why it shouldn't be in the Air tab. And we discussed it, and we think, why not? Throw it in there, make some people happy. So we're putting it in the Air tab. So you can finally take it over your F-16s or your Sea Eagles for some ungodly reason. You can do that now. But yeah, that is the end of the list of changes. I might be missing a couple things from the list, which we can add a little bit later, but that is pretty much it. We're not doing any major overhauls like cluster bombers, tank rebalances. We're not doing anything like that. We're skipping. We're just adding some small changes to some small tanks, and we kind of want to avoid the big changes that are going to take a long time to balance correctly. So, as a whole, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. We spent a lot of time in this list. We spent like 4 hours tonight speaking about lists of changes and stuff like that. So feel free to comment your questions or your reasoning. Before you comment, actually, I don't want people to rage about decisions. We spent a lot of time. We may have overlooked some things, and if there's something we overlooked, please let us know. In a nice way. Don't rage at us, because we're only human, and of course we're all doing this in our free time as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.